"You should be grateful we let you stay this long," he said, flipping the folder closed like the conversation was over. Training my nephew was the best legacy you could leave. He didn't even look at me when he said it. The kid stood next to him, still adjusting his tie, eyes on the floor, pretending not to be there. I didn't ask a single question, just logged out. My name is Ellis Hart, 62, senior contracts engineer at Norval Dynamics, 28 years on the floor. I've stayed through 5 CEOs, 2 bankruptcies, and 1 FBI audit. I've redrafted our client frameworks more times than I've updated my resume. I don't keep score, but I remember the night we lost the Lockridge deal in '09. Legal said it was over. I stayed behind, made coffee, and rewrote Clause 14 from scratch. Handed it to the CFO at 4:47 a.m. We closed 48 hours later. That clause still sits in our standard contracts today. No one remembers who wrote it. That's fine. I closed the laptop with both hands, quietly, picked up my thermos, slipped the pen into the loop on the inside of my jacket, the one they gave me after the Salixon acquisition. Name engraved. Almost illegible now. The hallway was too quiet. Overhead lights buzzed above glass offices where junior analysts avoided eye contact. A few stared at their screens with rigid spines, pretending they didn't hear. I moved slowly. No rush. A framed photo hung just past the corner, our first international signing 11 years ago. I was standing beside Robert Halden, the founder, holding a single-page contract. We didn't have departments back then. Just hands, calls, faxes, deals sealed with eye contact and a handshake. I took the photo off the wall, slipped it into my briefcase without a word. At the reception desk, I reached under the counter and pulled a thin envelope from beneath the stapler. I'd left it there last quarter, sealed and unsigned, the original version of the aerospace contract, before they revised it, before legal stripped the safeguards. No one saw me take it. No one asked why I did. The building felt too modern for what was happening. Wide glass, synthetic warmth. But I could still feel the concrete bones beneath it, steel and compromise layered over decades. Elevator down. Lobby empty. I walked across the marble. My steps echoed as they always did at 7:43 a.m. When I pushed through the glass doors, a gust of air caught my coat. Cold, sharp, early spring. I paused by the sidewalk and glanced back. There was the boardroom. Same table I'd defended the Brazil supply deal on. Same projector I used to walk through the live fiber breakdown when no one else had a clue. And now? A kid with a LinkedIn certificate and a 6-month onboarding plan. Let him have it. My fingers closed around the handle of my briefcase. I adjusted the weight, then crossed the lot without looking back. In the truck, I rested my hand on the steering wheel. Let the silence settle. The glove box was half open. Inside, the old NDA from Halden's last round, the one that never got digitized. My initials in the corner. Ink faded, but still binding. They thought they were done with me. Thought legacy meant obsolete. It never crossed their minds that I might have left something unfinished. I turned the key. The engine hummed. I didn't drive off right away. Just sat there. Silent. They thought I was the cost they could cut. They hadn't seen the invoice. I joined Norval in the fall of '95, back when contracts still moved on fax paper and half the office smoked indoors. I didn't ask for much. Just a desk, a pencil, and the truth. They gave me 2 out of 3. For the first 3 years, I kept my head down and read everything. Terms, clauses, asset risk language. Not because I had to, because no one else did. They noticed, quietly. By year 5, I was sitting in on meetings with people who didn't know my name, but signed what I drafted. There was no title change. No photo in the newsletter. Just longer hours and fewer mistakes. I learned to listen more than I spoke. To carry 3 pens instead of 1. To never be the loudest man in the room. Robert Halden, the founder, ran things back then. He was sharp but not flashy. Didn't smile much, but he remembered names. He used to nod once when I entered a meeting. That was enough. In 2007, we were cornered by a supplier collapse in Singapore. Everyone froze. Legal panicked. PR drafted a pre-failure statement. Halden just asked me what we'd signed. I quoted the fallback clause. He blinked once and said, "Then we're covered." After the meeting, he left a black fountain pen on my desk. No note, just the pen. I still carry it. When Halden stepped down in 2016, things started to soften. The new CEO, Marcus Kelton, came in with polished teeth and polished words, talked about innovation, agility, brand architecture, words with edges filed off. He asked for summaries instead of full reports, challenged timelines for the sake of momentum, praised lean legal, which mostly meant skipping due diligence. I adjusted. I always did. But I started staying later. Not because I had to clean up messes, but because no one else even saw them forming. It was around that time his nephew showed up. Brennan, 26. Fresh MBA from some coastal name school. Always early. Always overdressed. The first time I met him, he called me Mr. Hart and tried to shake my hand with both of his. I nodded once. They told me to show him the ropes. I didn't argue. I walked him through the contract archive, the negotiation chain logs, the Halden fallback clauses. He took notes on a tablet he kept forgetting in conference rooms. He was polite. Too polite. And when things got complicated, he smiled more. By month 3, he was presenting in rooms I used to lead. By month 6, I was being CC'd instead of invited. There was a woman at reception, Linda. She'd been there longer than I had. She used to bring me my mail with a sticky note if something looked urgent. One day she was gone. No announcement. No party. Just a different nameplate and a younger smile. I asked what happened. Brennan said she'd moved on. HR said she was let go as part of talent refresh. She left a note in my inbox before she cleared her desk. "Be careful, Ellis. They're playing with blindfolds on." I kept it. Small things started changing. A draft I submitted was returned edited, my name replaced by Brennan's. I confronted him. He shrugged. "Just alignment. We're a team, right?" Another time I flagged a client clause that could expose us to post-liability. Legal overrode it. 3 months later, we settled quietly for $1.7 million. No one mentioned it. When annual reviews came, mine was labeled satisfactory. After 27 years. The real shift came with the Mercer bid. We'd been chasing it for over a year. Defense-adjacent, high-value, sensitive IP. Exactly the kind of deal that made us matter. I'd structured the entire framework: compliance, indemnity, IP protections, arbitration fallback. Then they told me Brennan would be client-facing lead for the presentation. He asked me to walk him through it. One last time. I did. He smiled and said, "You know, none of this would work without you." I didn't respond. He meant it as gratitude, but it sounded like preparation. The night before the signing, I got a message from an old colleague. "Just saw the new term sheet. It's missing the secondary indemnity path. You approve that?" I didn't answer. The file in my drawer still had that clause. It wasn't in the version Brennan sent. I didn't know yet what it meant, but I knew it wasn't nothing. The wrong file went out. I didn't correct it. And Monday morning, someone's going to realize exactly what that means. Monday morning came. I was in early. Not because I had to be, because I didn't want to miss it. Brennan walked in 30 minutes late, holding a pastry bag and grinning like he'd won something. He didn't notice I was in the room. The call with Mercer's legal team was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp. We were in the East Conference Room. Glass walls, frosted just enough to keep things polite. I didn't sit at the table. I stood by the shelf, flipping through a binder I didn't need, listening. 10 minutes in, the mood shifted. You could feel it. The voice on the other end of the call went from smooth to surgical. "I have a question regarding the indemnity fallback in version 7. The one attached to Mr. Hart's original compliance memo. Brennan froze. Kelton leaned forward, confused. There's a version 7? No one answered. I didn't move. Mercer's legal team wasn't mad. They were amused, like someone had let them in on a joke early. The clause was still valid, still filed, still time-stamped under our internal system, which meant someone had knowingly submitted a revision without proper rollback history. It wasn't illegal, but it wasn't clean. Mercer asked for 48 hours to reassess. Kelton said nothing. Brennan smiled like it was nothing. I left the room before the call ended. I didn't gloat, didn't slow my pace, just walked back to my office, closed the door, and opened the drawer with the fountain pen. Didn't write, just held it. Weight felt different today. By 11 a.m., word was spreading. By 3 p.m., the finance floor was buzzing. By the end of the day, the Mercer account team was pulled into a private review. I passed Brennan in the hallway around 4:15. He didn't meet my eyes, just kept walking fast, phone pressed to his ear. That night, someone from HR pinged me. Quick check-in tomorrow morning, Ellis. Shouldn't take long. I've been through enough audits to know when a meeting shouldn't take long. Then came the second message. Subject line. Saw what happened. You still keep backups? It was from Terry Wilson. We hadn't spoken in 12 years. Last time we talked, he was cleaning out his desk after a client breach we both tried to warn about. I'd sent him a copy of the original agreement with markup history. Legal blamed him for escalating it. He took the hit, so I wouldn't. I still owe him. And I still keep backups. Last time I used one, it nearly cost me my job too. But the fallout helped us avoid a $20 million exposure. I opened the drive. The folders were still there, indexed, dated, version 7, with my initials. I didn't forward anything. Not yet. Just closed the window. Sat back. Waited. Around 5 p.m., I passed the small IT cubicle by the west elevators. One of the junior guys looked up and nodded, then lowered his voice into the headset. Yes, we're seeing a mismatch in version history logs. Could be a merge error or something else. I kept walking. In the break area, Brennan was speaking to a junior exec from sales, loud, animated. It was a formatting thing. The wrong PDF got pulled from our archive system. Harmless. They laughed. Too loud. I walked past Linda's old desk on the first floor, still empty. Same scratched nameplate. Someone had pinned a motivational quote above it weeks ago. It was gone. Only the tape outline remained. But the old sticky note was still inside my drawer. Be careful, Ellis, they're playing with blindfolds on. I tried to access the internal archive to cross-check one of the clause chains. Denied. Temporary credentials update in progress. That never happened, not unless someone flagged your access profile. They weren't just cleaning up. They were watching. That was new. They always knew who to blame. But this was hesitation. The kind that costs money. And Friday, someone's going to ask the wrong question. I didn't need to prove anything, but someone just made me want to. The next morning, HR's message didn't come with coffee or a smile. The room they used wasn't even HR's. It was one of the small legal conference rooms, second floor, windowless, no decor. There were 2 people waiting, one I didn't know. The other was Marta Dean, internal compliance. Quiet, precise, never smiled. They didn't offer a seat. Just started with a printed record. Mr. Ellis, can you confirm whether this document matches the final version of the compliance protocol submitted last quarter? I didn't touch the paper. Didn't look at it long. I just nodded once. That's all they needed. They thanked me. No reaction. No accusation. I was out in under 5 minutes. When I stepped back onto the 3rd floor, Brennan was walking with Kelton, arms waving like he was narrating a football game. He saw me. The grin faded just a fraction. That afternoon, the Mercer team sent a formal statement. They were pulling the contract. Kelton's assistant posted the message to the main Slack channel by accident. For about 6 minutes, 173 employees saw it before it was deleted. But 6 minutes is long enough. Rumors moved fast. By the end of the day, Brennan was no longer CC'd on certain threads. And I knew that was too early. Kelton wasn't done with me yet. Because at 6:37 p.m., I received a formal letter from Legal Review of Data Retention Irregularities. I wasn't being accused. Not yet. But the implication was clear. Someone was building a case, and they wanted me in it. That night, I didn't open the old drive. I made coffee, sat in silence, and printed a single page. Then I called someone I hadn't spoken to since Linda's funeral, her husband. Before that call went through, I walked past the break room. Brennan was inside, talking to Monica from events. She wasn't smiling. He was saying something about ungrateful legacy employees and how some people don't know when to bow out. I didn't stop, but I noted it. By noon, IT had rolled out a new data policy initiative, one Kelton had supposedly signed off on that morning. It required historical logs on file modifications, public-facing, with change tracking enabled, which would have been fine if I still had access to the archive system. I didn't. A second letter arrived at 3:15 p.m. This one came with a table of access anomalies that suggested unauthorized synchronization attempts from my IP. The wording was delicate. Probationary. Designed to trigger suspicion without accusation. I read it twice, then folded it once and placed it in the drawer under Linda's old keyboard. I wasn't worried. I was narrowing. Linda used to say the same thing when we ran diagnostics. Narrow it. Don't chase the noise. She always had a way of simplifying the chaos. A month before she died, we had coffee on the same bench outside the annex, the one by the freight entrance. She looked tired that day, but sharp. She told me something that didn't make sense then. Alice, you're good at finding the truth, but the truth doesn't always want to be found by good men. I didn't know what she meant. But now I do. I thought about that as I stared at the number on my phone. Her husband's name still saved under David, LT. He was quiet. Military background. Rarely spoke unless it mattered. When he picked up, he didn't say hello. Just, is this about the file? I paused, then said, yes. His voice didn't change, only said, then you'll want to see what's in her safe. Linda's husband met me at the corner of 4th and Danner. Neutral ground. We didn't shake hands. He handed me a key wrapped in a scrap of cloth and said, it's still in the basement where she left it. That was all. The house hadn't changed. Same rust on the mailbox. Same wind chime on the porch, still broken, still spinning. I let myself in. Basement was dry. Cement floor. Sharp smell. The safe was where she always kept it, behind the furnace panel. I entered the code. Same one we used on site back in '09. It opened. Inside, a red folder, labeled IF. That was her handwriting. There were 3 documents, 2 of them copies of internal policy drafts with metadata timestamps and chain of custody signatures. The third one was an email, forwarded, dated 7 months before her death. From Kelton to Brennan. If we push the revision without legacy endorsement, use Ellis's retention ID as fallback. He won't notice. And if he does, we'll manage it under old audit code. I read it 3 times. Then I laughed. Soft, dry. That was the moment. That's when I knew. They'd been using my clearance as cover for years, and Linda knew. She didn't confront them. She just documented everything. Kept it. For me. I placed all 3 pages in a new envelope. Then I wrote a note. I'm not burning this down. I'm just removing my name from the fire. And the next morning, I mailed it to Mercer's legal chief, direct. I almost didn't send it. I had 2 envelopes on my desk. One had Mercer Legal's address. The other was blank. The first one said, "Here's the truth," quietly. The second one said nothing, because that's what a man says when he decides to burn everything down. I kept both in my briefcase for 2 hours. Then I chose. Not because I forgave them, but because Linda had already done the hardest part. She made sure I wouldn't have to lie to myself. The response came faster than I expected. Not public, not loud. Just a short message from Mercer's general counsel. "Thank you. An internal escalation protocol has been initiated. No further contact is required." And that was it. 2 days later, Brennan sent me a message. Informal. Slack. "Hey man, saw some stuff going around. Just want to clear up any confusion. You know how fast things spread." I didn't answer. Then he tried again. Email this time. "Not sure if you've heard anything, but Kelton said things may have been misinterpreted. Happy to talk. Totally off the record." I archived both. At 4:16 p.m., my old access badge stopped working, which I appreciated. Clean breaks matter. David called me the next morning. Didn't ask how I was doing. Didn't ask what happened. Just said, "You did what Linda hoped you would." I nodded, then said, "I didn't win." He replied, "That's why you did." 3 days later, I received a package. No sender. Inside was a fresh copy of Mercer's quarterly audit report. Someone had circled the final line. All irregularities resolved. Systems integrity restored. No exceptions. My name wasn't on the report, which meant it didn't need to be cleared. It was never damaged to begin with. That night I drove out to the ridge behind Linda's old place. Left the original documents in a sealed envelope under the third stone of the bench we used to sit on. Not to hide them, to return them. Some truths don't belong in the spotlight. They just need to be known by the right people. I didn't need their apology. I needed the silence that followed. It's been 4 months. I wake up without an alarm now. The house is smaller, not new, not impressive, but it's mine. I fix the porch when it rains, oil the door when it squeaks, sweep the kitchen every morning. There's a coffee shop down the hill where nobody asks what I used to do. I like that. Sometimes I see the Mercer logo on delivery vans, on conference slides, in news alerts. I don't read them, but I do notice who they're trying to impress now. I still keep my old badge. Not as a reminder. Just proof it was real. It sits in a drawer with my father's watch and a photo of Linda from the project in Tampa. Things that didn't ask to be remembered, but were. The only document I keep now is one I wrote myself. 2 lines. I wasn't erased. I stepped out. Every Thursday I visit the bench behind Linda's old place. I bring fresh coffee. Hers black, mine with cinnamon. I don't talk, just sit. Sometimes the wind moves the chimes on the porch. Still broken, still spinning. And I stay there until it stops. She thought my legacy was the work. They thought it was the audit trail. But that's not it. Legacy isn't what's left behind. It's what no one can take. And I've still got that. The gentleman's revenge isn't loud, but it's always personal. If this felt personal, make it personal. Subscribe now, and don't miss tomorrow's story.